So welcome everybody. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Dan Kerr, and I have the privilege of being your moderator today for this monthly poetry reading hosted by Richard Bronson, our poet laureate, and featuring our North Carolina / Long Island or Long Island / North Carolina poet, Tony DiMatteo. So we do try to start promptly at 11. There is an open read after Tony reads his poems, and you'll see clearly on the agenda where this is. So if you'd like to participate in the open read, please put your name in chat and we will call you in groups of 3 for the open read. Please keep your microphone muted unless you're actually reading, because otherwise we get all sorts of background noise. And if I seem a little distraction as I do this opening, I have to personally admit everyone into the room, and we've just admitted 3 more people. Feedback is a gift. So if there's anything you like about what we did today, if there's anything you don't like, if there's anything you think we could improve upon, very easy email there, danielbkerr@verizon.net. Kathy and Richard and I review the feedback regularly, and we've been fine-tuning this program as we go. So although we think we've got something that works, can always be improved. So the planned agenda is I'll get you all settled, make a few opening remarks. I'll turn it over to our poet laureate, Richard Bronson, who will likely share a poem and some thoughts he has. He'll introduce Tony. Tony will read about 20 minutes worth of his poems. Then we will go to the open read. So again, if you want to be in the open read, put your name in chat. We'll bring Tony back for an encore, and then we'll bring back Richard for some concluding remarks, and he'll announce the next poet that we have coming in June. All Souls Church, Historic All Souls Church in Stony Brook, is pleased to host this program. And I know you're here for poetry, not for evangelization. So if you want to take a deeper dive in all the things we got going on at All Souls, just go to the All Souls website. But there are 3 monthly programs that may be of interest to you. One, there is a monthly concert series that we do. It's called Saturdays at 6. And these are concerts actually in the historical chapel, which has beautiful acoustics. And we've got a Spanish classical guitarist named Francisco Roldan, who'll be there on June 4th, and he'll be playing guitar music from Cuba, from Brazil, from Mexico, and from several other Latin American countries. We do the poetry every month. So there we have the passing of the twig between Robert Savino and Barbara Southard. So this poetry, it's not just this month, it's the second Saturday of each month. We do this poetry at 11 o'clock. We also do Native American drumming. There's our Native American drummer, the 4th Thursday of the month as well. Again, you want more detail on these and other things, go to the All Souls website. You can take a deeper dive. 2 particular dates I'd like you to consider putting on your calendar. Once a year, we combine our 3 monthly outreach programs. We combine the poetry. You can see Dr. Bronson there in the middle and several poets you know there on the left-hand side. We combine poetry with music, where you see 2 students from the university sitting next to our Native American drummer. We combine them all together. We have a series of spiritual readings that are selected by Carmen Bugan. We have a musical reflection after each of the readings, and we also have the drumming as well. So mark your calendars for that. That's in the church at 6 o'clock on August 6th. And then once a year, we do a 5K race, 2K walk. And this celebrates the role of All Souls in the community, also raises funds to make the church handicapped accessible. Those of you familiar with our historic chapel know it's at the top of a hill, and we've got poets and others that would like to come to our program that cannot make it up that hill. When Gladys Henderson was the poet laureate, she had to stop hosting it, but she couldn't get up the hill anymore. So that race celebrates the role of the church in the community, and it also raises funds to make the church accessible. So mark your calendars for October 2nd. This will be the 4th year that we do it. And each year there is a group of poets that walk in it called the Live Poets Society. And they march as a group. So you'll see Richard and Kathy and Barbara and others there. Please consider joining them on October 2nd. So with that, welcome on behalf of All Souls. We're privileged to host you. And let me turn it over to Dr. Bronson. Dr. Bronson, I'm going to clear the screen and you've got to turn on your mic.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. I always look forward to the second Saturday reading. It's one of the high points of the month for me. And what I've been doing the last few months is to select a poem from our Laureate Poetry Collective Flash. Twice a month, we gather and we share our favorite poems. And this past month, I chose a poem by Gerald Stern, passed away a few years ago. Wonderful poet with an ear for both humor and melancholy, which he sort of merged together in this very special way. So I'm going to read one of his poems, which I think has relevance to today, which is why I chose it. It's called The Dancing. In all these rotten shops and all this broken furniture and wrinkled ties and baseball trophies and coffee pots, I have never seen a post-war Filco with the automatic eye, nor heard Ravel's Bolero the way I did in 1945 in that tiny living room on Beechwood Boulevard, nor danced as I did then, my knives all flashing, my hair all streaming, my mother red with laughter, my father cupping his left hand under his armpit, doing the dance of old Ukraine, the sound of his skin, half drum, half fart, the world at last a meadow, the three of us whirling, singing, the three of us screaming and falling as if we were dying, as if we could never stop in 1945 in Pittsburgh, beautiful, filthy Pittsburgh, home of the evil Mellons, 5,000 miles away from the other dancing in Poland and Germany. Oh God of mercy, oh wild God. So celebrating the end of World War II, and we hope that the present war will come to some conclusion. The poem has captured Gerald Stern so well. I wanted to share it with you. So I'm looking forward very much, moving on to hearing Tony DiMatteo. And it's a widely published poet, translator, scholar of Shakespeare, author of pioneering essays in the teaching of writing with computers. There's an aside I can tell you after about that. Former chair of English at New York Tech, administrator, supervisor of a child care agency in New York City, and the author of several books, Defense of Poets, reading from Elysium, Beautiful Poems. So welcome to the Zoom podium at All Souls, Tony. Looking forward very much to hearing your poetry. Thanks for being here.
Tony, over to you. You just got to turn on your mic. Hey, Tony, you've got to turn on your microphone. Should be a little towards where you turned on your camera. There should be on the bottom. There you
go.
There you go.
Okay. I know silence is golden, but you don't
There
want
we go.
Okay. Yeah, I want to thank Barbara for inviting me, Barbara Southard, and Kathy for accepting me, Dan for coaching me, and Richard for hosting me. So that, just the quadrumvirate. Very nice. Thank you, people. I want to read a poem that surprisingly I've never read before. And it's from my book, Beautiful Problems. It's an oxymoron, Beautiful Problems. But the sense is a dead person would love to have any one of our problems. So that kind of launched me. And this is a poem. I guess it's a kind of I don't know if it's a typical poem that I write, but it's a typical poem that poets write. It's taking a trip with a voyage. I mean, I'm sorry. It's taking a trip with an image. I took a double voyage there. Okay, it's taking a voyage with an image. And here it is. The name is A Square Inch. A square inch of wilderness is a beautiful problem. Well, over it, the one and the many fight for dominance. Entire nations stake it out. It buries their borders, rusting the barbed wire that would mark its limit. Its battered silence enters us, commanding a truce. Honey pours from its parched lips. One taste haunts a lifetime. Dangerous as the bait that opens a mouth. I love to float in it, spit into an empty cup. It strays out nearby, crumpled mountain and a bed sheet. A nodding into wilderness, sleeps in a pocket. Lucky charm between fingers, worry bead, stone in a river. Less than an inch can sink a ship or open a crevice in the heart. One lights a candle inside it to learn what light is. It sends up a flare in us when we have lost it. Smother it it turns into a river. Channel it, it lights off to the high desert. Attempt capture, and hear the key turn as desire escapes the bed. An ancient order of night rises, and the dogs want out. Try to measure any inch. Here the ruler bends a man. There it sways a woman, loving a smile she holds fast. Nor can we say in the end that's all we have. It's what will be. A square inch of wilderness turns to dust in any hand. Okay, so that's taking a voyage with an image. The next poem is from a different book, In Defense of Puppets. We're all puppets in one sense or other. And, the square inch poem mentioned a truce, taking a truce with the wilderness. And this poem is called The Truce. And it's about, well, you'll know what it's about. The truce, ancient rift between brothers and sisters kept us apart. And now he's here at my door. First cousin, not seen in 40 years or more. 3 inches taller, years older than I, and big moon eyes like my father had. His own long since closed off from the sky. No one of that generation is left alive, but their feud has outlived their flesh. Who knew hatred thrives beyond the grave? Now we stand at a threshold and weep like brothers made to fight a civil war. He had looked me up, afraid to call, lest I suspect some prank or malice, but I shudder from another dread. Who'll return in dream to open my eyes upon no field of my own? No matter. The dead call no truce. Only the living can. Sharing first names, I embrace this man. The truce. This poem, it was published in my first book. It's going to come out in the MacGuffin in a different version. I've written another version. I keep, revising. The name of the poem is The Favor. I have a crowd, black robe for graduation. She rushes up and asks, I heard you're going to Yosemite. Would you mind bringing someone dear to me? She looks into my disbelieving eyes. I hardly know her, and I'm no porter. It's a solo trip, I'm sorry to say. My hiking buddies don't have time, but who do you have in mind? My husband. She grins and reaches for my hand. He'd be no bother. She has tears in her eyes. Would you take his urn and scatter his ashes for Mount Vogelsang? A rock slide goes off in my mind. I just want to run and hide. But I blurt out, it'd be an honor. And then to my horror, this one time I'll let some dude come along and not carry his own weight. Her face blanks out before she lights up. Thanks so much. We honeymooned on that mountain. Tonight I'm thinking how heavy his urn will be. He was a big guy. I've heard he died on the subway, noticed only when he did not depart the last stop. Soon he would sit on my back, hoping for flight, off a cliff or dance in a meadow. But what if pieces of him float away to my coffee, into my eyes, or burst all over my pack in the rain, standing my notebook, fouling my food? I could just lie to her. He'd never say. But what if his eyes fixed on mine, deep in the woods as I long for my wife? Jealous of my life, I'd say to him. Across the dark, I gave you a free ride. I could not sleep far enough away. He'd flick the smoke of my candle. Mornings would prove no different. Ash on my tongue and on my hands. What river could wash one that deep? Only the one that drowns us out. I'd be walking for a dead man, his step guiding mine all day. But what if I gained the summit and lifted the urn high overhead to let the wind cajole him out and free him of any semblance of what it was to be a man? This would help to free her grief. Then comes the half-wanted reprieve. Thanks again for your kind favor. I do myself had I the strength, but I've decided to make a shrine in our garden of our yard, a niche among the wild roses just for him. Though relieved, I feel no relief. For nothing had I slept with a dead man, heard the dead silence of a man I might never meet. No, not for nothing. For now, a voice trails after my own. You'll soon be the thing you can't be, weightless memory, if the living bear you. So I'll not boast of life to the dead. Should they come to cargo me off, I hope I have no need to hide. The favorite. This poem is, well, you were asking me about how do I go from Long Island with my Bronx accent to down here in south of Dixie border, or south of the Mason-Dixie. And this poem is about that transplanting experience. The name of the poem is Recycling. She looks at me when I yell out, Mazel tov. You all right there? She shouts back, thinking a shard of glass has struck me. I'm fine. It feels like something to celebrate when a bottle smashes. Oh, okay, I thought you said my eyes popped. No, Mazel tov, Jewish phrase for good luck. The look on her face tells me she's puzzled, never having heard the expression or wondering why I'd say it breaking bottles or both. We're at the recycle center, alone in the dead heat of August. I'm a transplant from New York. She's a native of the Outer Banks. Yep, lived here all my life, she tells me, squeezing hard on her trash picker. I picked up all kinds of stuff that got no place in our bins, from diapers to a bucket of dead fish. Well, now you've picked up a new phrase that deserves recycling, I tell her with a laugh. Oh, that's right. My old stuff, isn't that what you said? Close enough, and good luck to you. Oh, to you too. You probably know this woman, Luann, right? You know this. Okay.
Very funny.
Teaching writing for 35 years, it's both the summit and the trench. Sometimes it's simultaneous. Sometimes students say the most profound things, and sometimes they say the craziest things. So I decided to kind of write a poem, well, the name of the poem is Riffs on Student Writing. I'll let you figure out which one is profound, which one is nuts. Okay. Freedom is sometimes found in the most unwanted events. A big, lazy sentence, for instance, with nowhere to go. Or memories tossed off a bridge to sleep with the fish. Sometimes when the essential points of reality appear, words scramble to the scene before one can get there. Looking back with no intention of describing a thing, the squirrel juggled with his nuts in the air. And our forefathers laid down the Constitution that mothers have been mopping up ever since. Paradox, rear ends, non sequiturs with nowhere to run. Today's slumlord, tomorrow's palace king. Amazing how many times grandmothers have been buried with an essay due Monday, or a house burns down from the flare of metaphor. When eyes sink before a flotsam of words, one-liners make for floats. No one thinks the apostles were the wives of the epistles. Anger and love show on a face in the same way the world over. And one can dream or climb up on any given page, never knowing what to find around end nowadays. The way most expensive smiles cover frowns and pimples. As for the past, why talk about someone you can't talk to now? In the end, history turns out no matter whatever. Hormones flare up like neon signs in the desert. Does one look for signals after a fire's gone out? It's difficult to stray from the familiar when expectation dogs the event. Is this why what doesn't happen blinds us to what is? Behold the elements. Light follows darkness. Silence holds a tune. Progress may erase a path, and water finds a way, though hard pressed by stone. Ever wonder why one runs into fate by accident? People are better off losing a love that can't be found. If happiness is in the doing, is sorrow in the being? Her obligation to no one but herself separates her from the things she wants. Sometimes an open cage door proves no exit. Even a badly said truth rings true. The false mind reveals itself in the act, if not in words. Voices out of paper stacks drift like leaves from the trees. The work is unending when stones catch the river, and years have gone by among dead letters spun, where friends now in shadow once laughed in the sun. Riffs on student writing. This is a really, well, I can get through this poem. Okay, the name of the poem is Soul Night. People all over the world had come to my house, uninvited and dressed as if Halloween. First, I saw siblings not seen in years, and my mom dead for a decade at my door. And a long line of people unknown, disguised as ghosts, witches, fairies, superheroes, puppets, and machines. In a distant room, I heard my wife's voice, so I called out for her. Had she planned a party this size and not said a word? Her laugh suggested she thought I joked, leprechaun from Cork as she is. But we couldn't talk, too many in the way for us to squeeze around. So I looked for a seat, somewhere to take it all in and hide the fact I alone wore no costume, just my typical clothes. What I wear any day when I'm out and need to fit in and be a bit invisible. Now I stood out, and people looked down at me, as if I spoiled the spirit of the day. I looked up to see this giant Black woman in beautiful flowers draped, complaining about her shoes. Oh, how these heels hurt my feet. And I asked, Aretha, why not take them off? She laughed when she found cool grass to dip her toes and began to sing. I found rest on a soiled stone bench, reason why no one else claimed it. I sat down and felt at last alone. I watched the parade stream by, faces sunrise red and black as night, speaking all languages of the world. Then two others came by me, each invisible, because we were dead. Okay, so there's that poem. And let me see. It's time for a love poem, I think. Let me rush off and read a love poem. This poem is too spooky. It's just a spooky poem. The one truth to my wife, Kathleen. I think she's out there in Zoom land somewhere. The one truth. I was in Nevada and the road was moving under me. Or was I on the road in Montana as mountains fled? The wind rose and the night stumbled into the woods. You were on my mind, the way I had been on the road. I was along my way trackless before you appeared. I could not pass beyond your trace. What use to look to bluffs of Wyoming, those pinnacles of sand, where an open field let yellow flowers wander for miles? I found one of your thrilling routes under stars and no speed limit. I watched mountains rise up as if wearing the breath of God, and three rivers converge in a wild concourse of silver, headstrong for a distant sea. I beheld the moon right above blackened valleys, and it wore your face, mocking my quest. In the far sweep of your current, I turned into a stream, seeking where I ended and you began. The waters proved to merge. But the dimmer the woods, the darker the night, the more the one truth remains clear. I will return to you. The one truth. Let's see what I got here now. There's a recent poem, like 3 days ago. Sometimes lifting a finger does the trick. Sometimes the soul, that vagabond. Other times prove stones to carry. Others open ground to let be. And when rain turns heavy, snow waits its turn. And when the sun commands, lovers find the shade. There are days to dream away and nights to fear. There are nights to wish for and days to grieve. Sometimes lending a hand breeds mistrust. Sometimes even the heart almost heals. Almost heals. Okay. This is a poem that, I used to sail. Well, actually, I had a sailboat, but I hardly ever sailed. I would just point the boat at Fire Island and the motor would just automatically take me. And, but, I have some people in my family who are fantastic sailors. So I didn't reveal that too often. But this is an actual sailing event, and it's called Luck at the Helm. The boat held steady between ferry and buoy, though the boy at the helm yelled to his father to take the wheel. It was not the first time he was in charge of his own fate, though it was the first to steer a boat between go and don't, a swell of a line in the best of times. The boat held steady because wind with tide obliged direction needed, and the boy felt that pulse in his hand, that wild thrill, that charge of feeling, the command of some powerful machine, the way a child feels with its first step. And then the fear of how things change so fast, the way a ferry may veer closer and the course ahead shrink to a few feet. In this case, the boy held it steady, just enough to get through as his dad watched from the bow, taking pictures. Now the boy turned to man, long since, scolds the father for negligence. You took photos, but not the wheel. The father smiled the way he had 40 years ago beneath the sail. I enjoyed how you earned my trust, which always must come before earned. But the son would not accept paradox for apology, no bowing down to a sage. Dad, you're lucky I didn't let the wheel go. Had we crashed, you'd have been blamed. I knew you could steer that boat, son, the wind following and the tide with us. The only question was, would you do it? That choice is one's fate here and now. The ferry and buoy, one must sail through every moment. And then when the dad rose from the table to hug his son, both beers spilled like a wake makes foam, and they just laughed and ordered two more. Luck at the helm. Thank you. I lived as a group home supervisor while I was writing my PhD, and I lived in a group home for 10 years. I have a novel which is looking for a home. Ironically, it's named Homeboys. You can't find a home. But it was a home for 10 boys, and once in a while I write a poem to kind of, I don't know, just do something with the memory. And this one is called Misery. He stood there at the door as if to say, it's about time. We had to let him in, handsome and healthy, this blue-eyed blonde, Adonis of a kid, with a judge in his pocket, perhaps in more than one way. The judge, too, would show up at our door, just walking in one morning, checking on the boy, dawdling in his room, late for high school again. Why isn't he in school? The judge asked me. But I said, Your Honor, here I wear the robes, still in my bathrobe. He patted the boy's head as he ran smirking out the door. The boy loved to show us karate moves, coming close to our nose. But when he clobbered his grandmother on a visit, I took him back to family court to see the judge again, who told him, Robbie, you've got to behave better, sending him off to another group home. I never saw or heard the boy again, but the voice of his grandmother with its slight brogue on the phone, trying to cover up the beating he gave her when she found him in her purse, has never left my head for the past 40 years. Forgive him, she asked me. He knows no other but the hard way he's learned. Misery. Do I have more time, Richard?
One more. And then we'll get back
One
to
more.
the-
Oh, one more. Let me see. I'll do. Let me see. I'll do Canyon Call. Canyon Call. I try to write a poem about the Grand Canyon, but you can't write a poem about the Grand. I've tried and tried. So I figured let me write a poem about the Grand Canyon in terms of how it registers on a body. All right. Canyon Call. To leave the 21st century, wander off the road into the canyon. The silence is intimate like a lover who has traveled a long distance and now wants you all at once. When you pause, you hear how loud your creaking pack has been, a rattle of coin in a quiet church, where a juniper corkscrews into the sky, a white-gray bird with a brown back tilts his head sideways and flies off. You have never been so at home in this alone. You ask the universe, why have you kept my true life a secret from me? But you know there is no I in this place where oceans have come and gone. You envy clouds, wanting to rise and float, to defy the fate that made you human. Life on earth began in such rhythms, yes? You think of your brother lost along the way, the path down so much easier than up. Looking back, you see only your footprints in pinkish dust that go the one way like the river far below. Soon the sun will kneel to darkness. Light dwindles, and you cannot stay for long. Each step down drops you further back in time and cannot be retraced, though sure to be erased. You could turn into a stone, so alone, so at home, and no one would ever find you here. No more than fish its fossil or shore now cliff, each grain of sand unique and each alike, one of many and each one. Is this how things stand? An eagle's cry warns, stay on the trail. At path's end, the river reveals its craft. Obsidian slabs rise, cathedrals billions of years old. When night comes, the stars sing praise. A pink scorpion crawls in your boot and leaves at dawn. How lucky one is to be alive. Walking back up, you feel left behind. You laugh and weep and want to tell the world what you cannot understand. Alone at home before a desert-like page. The canyon has claimed you, one of its own. Canyon Call.
Thank you, Tony. That was just a
Thank you.
wonderful, wonderful journey you took us on, with just filled with image and emotion and truth and some of the subtleties of life. Beginning with the trip, you took us that square inch of wilderness. It was amazing how much you fit into that 1 inch. And the truce, what a beautiful, beautiful story of reconciliation. And the trip to Yosemite, I'm looking at my brother's ashes on my counter here, which I still think so
What is with poetry?
Yeah. And the wonderful, wonderful, the North Carolina the recycling Mazel Tov. That's what I'm always going to remember.
That really happened. She's quite a woman.
Yeah, and I teach accounting, not writing, but your riffs on student writing was just priceless. And that spooky soul night poem that was just such powerful imagery, and that beautiful love poem to your wife. And sometimes the heart almost feels. That's a powerful message. And the feeling that I got of that kid at the helm, I think we all could have felt that. Anyone who's ever held a wheel in a boat or a tiller for the first time, and the misery of that Irish grandmother and the kid at the home, and the canyon calls that taking us from the 21st century and reminding us all to stay on the trail. Just a powerful journey, Tony. Well done.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that.
Okay, so we're going to move into the open read now. So let me call up my ground rules. We do have some folks here for the first time. I noticed new names. So open read, I'll go on the basis of the names and call upon them in the order that they appear in the chat. Please, only one poem, and most of the poems are pretty short. Please, no more than 5 minutes, because we want to give everyone an opportunity to read their poems. Please keep your microphone muted except when you are reading. Please wait to be called upon. And after the open read, we'll bring back Richard at the end. We will schedule to go to 12, depending upon how many readers we have. We may flex a little bit beyond that. And everyone, even if you didn't put your name in chat, between Kathy and Richard, we'll go around at the end a couple of times. We'll make sure that every one of you that wants to read has an opportunity to read. So we're going to call you in groups of 3. And when I call you, please be prepared to turn your microphone on. And we're going to start with, so the first group is James from one of our three North Carolina poets today. We'll start with James, then we'll go to Shu, and then we'll go to Victoria. So let me stop sharing here. And James, we're going to start with you. Please remember to turn your microphone on.
Okay, is that on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, suffering and pain in Ukraine. Suffering and pain does always seem to remain in a sad domain. Soldiers will sustain. None have ever died in vain, defending Romaine. Romaine bodies laid while Russia prepared parade, and to pass soon fade. Soldiers possessed shield, so they could not have to yield, fighting in the field. On Romaine landed, Russian effort expanded, retreat demanded. Suffering and did grieve, Russia finally would leave, knew they were naive. Beautiful before, blasted to pieces after, basement to rafter. Over.
Thank you, James. So vivid and so current. Sue, over to you. Remember to turn your mic on, Sue.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sue.
So today's poem was inspired by this poem called Tonight I Can Write by Pablo Neruda. He said that love is so short, forgetting is so long. So the title of the poem is Forgetting. Forgetting. Morning gleam shines through the light curtain. Reminds me of your sweet smile. Kitten wires sitting on the countertop lifelessly. The smile of the blueberry pancake is missing in the air. The color of the sofa had faded. We had watched countless movies in it. Tossing and turning in dark and long night. Long for your soft snoring. How could I not think of you? How could I forget you? Sakura tree in the yard blooms every spring. The bench beneath, covered by pink petals, rusty and lonely. Hot summer sun set the far horizon on fire. Raging waves hit the rocks, echoes lingering in the salty air. The footprints on the beach had washed away. Leaves on the bare mountain may be already changed color, dancing in the cold and crispy air. The albums of leaf collections was hiding somewhere in the attic, worn and shabby. Snow-covered words, quiet and pure. The mug for hot chocolate was broken years ago. My favorite lemon cake now tastes like raw dough, sour and hard. How could I not missing you? How could I erase you from my memory? Maybe one day I do forget you. Could how I was then. The end.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Sue. Thank you for reminding us that love is short, but forgetting is long. So, thank you. Victoria, over to you.
All right, this poem is called Glimpse. You are lying on the side of the road with silent eyes, having wandered away from the arms of the wild. I am uncertain how to name you, little child of nature. Thick, coarse fur, the wrong color for a fox, not dog, not beaver, not weasel. Do names really matter now that you are empty of your prancing and hunting, your joy of field, of tree root and stream? The day is warming, the wind is gently lifting your limp tail, as if a wandering spirit has slipped inside you in search of purity. What ceremony shall there be for your silent body so close to the spires of the fragrant cathedral? What sacrament for a sinless creature in no need of forgiveness? The crows know best how to sing the hymns. The flies will dance and pray with folded wings, prepare you for the cleansing rain. In mutual silence, let us share this momentary clarity, this starlight blinking between the whispering leaves, this glimpse of something calm and true. this acceptance that one day we will meet again, move from simplicity to simplicity as one.
Thank you, Victoria. Well done. Okay, the next group of three will be Barbara, followed by JR, followed by Mike Daly. So Barbara, over to you.
Feels good to be back here. Tony, I just loved your poems. Daniel already mentioned all the poems I loved, but there were a couple that I just have to say, some of the lines, the heart almost heals in one of your poems. It's so beautiful. And the other, when you were reading the poem about the boy in the group home, that last line just took my breath away with the grandmother talking to you on the phone. Here's my poem. This is a poem about a bike I found in the woods. It's called Crash Dream Bicycle. There you are, half hidden in vines in the middle of the woods, rust tattooing designs all over your frame. I'm madly attracted to your twisted wheels, spokes flaring in all directions, sturdy handlebars gleaming in the light. There must have been a child who spent summer days riding you, learning to master the surrounding world. It disturbs me to see you tossed out like a bad bag of onions. I bring you home, hang you on my fence. Years have now passed with you in my yard. Small improvement from your abandonment in deep woods caught in shaggy undergrowth. I've brought you inside, painted your frame in a kaleidoscope colors, added small round mirrors so that your very presence lights up the room in a crescendo of reflected light. This is all I can do for you. You are here as I am here,
Is it blooming
catching
up
the
here?
light, still a
Oh,
part
good, yeah.
of this world.
I just found that one bloom is all I found so far. It's cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. That was wonderful. James, you
We
got to
should
keep
have
your
a
mic
bunch of them.
muted.
You should have
James,
a bunch of them.
I'll mute him. Okay, here we go. Thank you. Okay, JR, over to you.
Terrific. Thank you. What a wonderful set. The truce will remain with me forever. Thank you. So this is the title poem from my book. Almost A is for almost anything. This is almost anything. And I love that poetry is almost anything. Always be prepared, like a Girl Scout or Cub Scout. I was both. Honorary Cub because my brother was in the troop. Our mother was Scout leader. I didn't like my Monday after class dance lessons, and I was ready for anything. Though I never got to enter my whittled car in the soapbox derby, and that's okay, because I like the guy stuff better than sewing and baking, yet I can crochet you a blanket of wishing. Almost anything can manifest when you least expect to see your breath levitate on a cold cloud, feel sweat pool in the crook of your elbow, awaken at 3 a.m. to find your heart racing like an Indy 500 winner and the house cemetery stone silent, and the quiet reminds you that everything is okay. Anything can ensue when you flip open the box cover and see what waits inside. Caramel, pecan cluster, buttered truffle, vanilla ganache, dark chocolate cashew chews, nougats with your dentist's name engraved in them. Sweet anticipation, decadent intoxication, a dark chocolate reason to live, and that's okay with me. Anything can appear when you flip open the book and see what waits inside, enticed by a vibrant cover promising an engaging vacation away from your life, chaptered with excitement and intrigue, a deep, mysterious reason to read, and that's okay too. Anything can call to you from the next page, whisper your name in coconut cream seduction, strum your heart, tune from strings connected to your poetry soul, tap your toe to melancholy blues, and that's all good. It's all okay. Anything can threaten to steal your happiness, rock your boat, reach up, drag you down to black abyss. And it's easy to forget that you are in charge of how you feel, how you react, how you let go of the bad and grasp the good for all it's worth. And soon you'll see life isn't all the dark covered raspberry creams everyone hopes for. And that's really okay too. Thank you.
Thank you, JR. And that was more than okay. So Mike Daly, one of our North Carolina poets.
Okay.
Yep.
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I was looking through a bunch of poetry, trying to put together another book, and I came across this poem called Old Pictures. It was written right after my mother passed away. See, my father passed away when I was 3 years old, and I never knew the man. And it dawned on me that there's no one alive today that ever knew that man. So I wrote this poem so that my descendants could know a little bit about my mom and dad. It's called Old Pictures. I was looking at old pictures of my mom and dad, thinking of the life they only wished they'd had. War brought them together. War kept them apart. The story of their romance sits only in my heart. In a jungle in New Guinea, in a canvas army tent, a refuge in the jungle where wounded soldiers went, a triage nurse of 26 decided who to bag or fix, met a pilot, fell in love. Just what were they thinking of? He was flying transport planes. She was easing soldiers' pains. They thought they would then take a chance on a wartime love romance. But she was stuck there on the ground, the enemy still all around. She prayed to God most every night that she would see the morning light. He was stationed far away, flying out most every day, praying, God, let me survive and end each flight with all alive. They got together now and then, never could predict when, just when. He wrote letters every day. She wrote when she found a way. Four-leaf clovers that she found were with him each time he left ground. A crash or two, but he'd repair and get himself back in the air. She too had her ups and downs as fighting overran her grounds. He was finally shipped back home. She was left there all alone. Another year, would she be home? That was still a great unknown. Then Guinea rot with no known cure. The war was over now for her. Almost 3 years over there, 3 years that she couldn't spare. She was wed soon after that. She got a dog, she got a cat. She got her man for 6 short years. She got a lifetime more of tears. Flying on a wartime route, flying till his luck ran out. She was left with 4 young kids, a broken heart now on the skids. A broken heart for 40 years, and only death could end those tears. Now I look at old pictures of my mom and dad, and I think of the life that they should have had. But pictures will fade like the memories they spawn, and all will be lost once I'm dead and gone. So that's why I write, and I hope I'll be read, so memories like this will never be dead. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful tribute, Mike, to you folks. Just beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so we've only got 2 more readers on the list, but don't worry, if you still want to read, just put your name in chat, and again, we'll do the pass around after we get done. So the 2 people on the list are Herb Wallstein, followed by Dan Kerr. So Herb, over to you.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. Nature's Calls on Saturday, May 11, 2019. While driving on Hawkins Road in Stony Brook, I'm awed by mid-May blossoms. Green oak, red maple, chromatic tulips. Even the homes seem to spring up with fresh life and colors. Above the green and red leaves, a platinum sun set in a brilliant baby blue clear sky. Then suddenly I see a lily white half moon. Birds of every feather sing songs, seemingly in praise of this mid-May day. Boom, boom, exploding all peace, blast from a bright red and a bright black Harley burst from the road in a territorial, testosterone-driven, different response to spring. Smoking angels? Hell, each territorial, testosterone-driven male bird of every feather sings. If I had a bright red or a bright black Harley, well, hello, ladybirds. Thank you.
Thank you, Herb. Well done. Megan, I see you want to read as well, so over to Megan.
Thanks. This poem is called Harvey's Coat. The call came a cool breeze on a humid day. Strands of relief tangled with surprise. We may have a match for you, the woman's voice said, her voice lotion on winter skin. I wanted you. I needed you. I didn't want to need you. You wouldn't guide me the same way. You wouldn't read my jumbled thought mind. I wasn't ready to create a new language of movement all our own. I wouldn't know your habits. Your predecessor was tired. He deserved a rest. He gave everything to me. So I said yes to you. I promised you my best, to not compare yesterday's creation to today's unwoven yarn. I untwisted my hopes into the velvet shell of your ear, your head resting on my knee, waiting. I hoped my long threads of dreams would sustain us over the bumps. I feared our speeds wouldn't match. I wanted to power walk. You were too concerned about cracks in the sidewalk. You showed me through your quiet persistence, hidden roses along the journey smell sweet. Sometimes we dropped a stitch, miscommunicated. We tinked, reversing our steps, breathed the bright air together to continue our weave. Love, soft and glistening like your paintbrush coat, I groom you to a gloss. Your golden threads surround me, reverence for the unfolding present and gossamer hope for the future hope. Float. I reach down to stroke your silky head. You press your paw on my foot. Touch the language that reassures us both. We are weaving a new tapestry together. Thanks.
Thank you, Megan. Well done. To feel that paw on your foot. So, okay. So this is a poem by Dan Kerr, and you notice I changed my outfit here. And it's called 1940, Nevermore. So whether you're a New York Ranger fan or not, I hope you enjoy this poem. Here goes, 1940, Nevermore. There are times when a sporting event is more than a game. The fights between Max Schmeling and Joe Louis on the eve of World War II, or Muhammad Ali knocking out Sonny Liston and declaring, "I am the greatest of all time." Willis Reed limping onto the floor of the old Madison Square Garden and inspiring the Knicks to beat the Lakers in Game 1 and their first NBA title. Jim Valvano and the boys from North Carolina State defeating the heavily favored Houston Cougars in the 1983 NCAA Finals. Bobby Thompson shot heard around the world that beat the Dodgers in a playoff, and the radio announcer shouted repeatedly, "The Giants win the pennant, the Giants win the pennant." Bill Mazeroski's home run in the bottom of the ninth that toppled the mighty New York Yankees in the 1960 World Series. Johnny Unitas and the Baltimore Colts defeating the New York Giants in overtime at Yankee Stadium in the greatest football game ever played. And Joe Namath and the upstart New York Jets shocking the world by defeating the heavily favored Baltimore Colts in Super Bowl III. Herb Brooks and his group of college kids performing the Miracle on Ice and vanquishing the mighty Soviet Union at the 1980 Olympics in Lake Placid. All of these events transcended mere sport and captured the hearts and minds of a nation. But for me, a long-suffering New York Ranger fan, nothing has ever been felt more deeply than the Rangers winning the Stanley Cup in 1940. Uncle Fred took me to my first Ranger game at the old Madison Square Garden in 1962. The Rangers were awful, and their goalie, Gump Worsley, played without a mask. Like many former players, after he was traded to the Montreal Canadiens, he won 4 Stanley Cups with another team. Uncle Freddie became a Ranger fan in 1941, the year after the Rangers last won the Stanley Cup. Throughout his lifetime, the Rangers were either awful or just not good enough to win it all. Whenever they got close to a championship, a Ranger shot hit the post, a Ranger player broke an ankle, an opposing team shot went in from the point, the puck took a bad bounce, or some other sad twist of fate killed the dream of another Stanley Cup. It was often said the hockey gods put a curse on them when they burned the mortgage of the old Madison Square Garden in the Stanley Cup they won in 1940. Whenever the Rangers were playing on the road and clearly on their way to defeat, the home crowd would chant that dreaded curse that all Ranger fans deeply felt in their heart and soul. 1940, 1940, 1940. Uncle Fred died in 1993, the year before the Rangers finally put it all together. And Mark Messier hosted the Stanley Cup at the Garden that wondrous day in June of 1994. 54 years of futility were over, and the announcer shouted, "This one will last a lifetime." At the ticker tape parade in the Canyon of Heroes for the Rangers in Manhattan, several older fans held up signs, "Now I can die in peace." After attending the parade in Manhattan, I purchased a Stanley Cup banner and planted it atop my Uncle Fred's grave and sent pictures of it to all my brothers that Uncle Fred took to the Ranger games before he took me. When the Ranger players received their championship rings, there was an inscription inside each one. It said simply 1940, and it had a line through it. The Rangers have come close a few times since 1994, and their seasons since then have ended with playoff losses in games they probably should have won. But Uncle Fred can rest in peace, and I will never have to endure that dreaded chant, 1940, never more. Thank you. Okay, so I think at this point, let's check the screen. And Kathy, I know you usually like to read. So Kathy, would you like to read? Kathy Donnelly?
Sure, I'm here. I'll start by, first of all, Anthony, which do you prefer to be called, Tony or Anthony? Are you with us?
I can answer for, there he is.
No, Tony's quicker, so Tony's fine.
I just wondered because you've been called both this session. Thank you so much for those poems. I can't stop laughing every time I think of that Irish woman on the Outer Banks. Very funny. And mazel tov to you for handling her so well, letting her say it the way she chose. Your poems are fabulous, really clear, and you read beautifully. So thank you very much. And of course to Richard for emceeing and Dan for putting this whole thing together. And welcome to all the people that came today, that's for sure. So just to give you a brief intro, I built a house in the year 2000, and 4 years later, my tenants wanted to buy it from me, Rabbi Adam Stein and his wife Esther, who now are the parents of 10 children. Anyway, I needed a place to live again, and a woman named Claire Nicholas White was renting half her house because her husband had died. So I moved in with her, and now I lived in a house built in the 1800s. And this poem is dedicated to that house that had a personality of its own. It's called This Old House Groans Under Weight of Wet Snow. I soak in a steamy hot bath, ice pelts against the wall and window between us. Small candles flicker with winds that find their way in, cracks between tiles and plaster. Wooden slats 2 centuries old bend to the memory of themselves. Storm doors jammed by snowdrifts must open in. Kitchen floor spaces between woodboard and door saddle give a glimpse as if the Weather Channel. Rope pulls open trap door to basement, steep stairwell, dirt floor, stone walls, small fuse box. Washroom secured with a hook, no heat, 19th century edition. Guests grab coats to use the outhouse. Whispering breaths and sighs, bending, yielding, remaining structurally sound with the charm of an elderly gentleman. This old house has the wherewithal to endure and face due south. Thank you.
Kathy. Okay, so let's see if there's any more that want to read. So if you want to read, just wave your hand. Virginia, I see you're there. You're certainly welcome to read if you like. So if anyone likes to read, is that a yes, Virginia? Oh, that's a no, I'm not sure. That's a no, okay, fine. All right, Kathy, Richard, I don't see anyone else at this point. So Tony, back to you for your encore.
Okay, I'll read this one. It's called Citizens of the Universe. At 17, I found out my mother was adopted.
Mm.
The purity of my blood proved so much snow in July. Though old enough to know the truth, I looked at her with new eyes. She was told at 17 by her mother. My own shock gave way to hers. How she must have suffered, how she must have wondered. Half French, half German. Was she an abandoned product of the Great War? I embraced her the way children do, not needing to know each other's names.
Beautiful.
That's from Fishing for Family. It's got this incredible image. If you don't know Christina Bothwell, she's on Facebook and she does this glass sculpture. There you can see the human figure inside the fish. Amazing, amazing artist and very nice woman too. I have one more poem. You know, I'm always reading Ovid. I mean, Ovid is he staging a comeback? The guy is just like, it's coming, he's never left. I mean, it's just an amazing thing. You have Virgil, you have Homer, you have all these ancient poets, but it's Ovid, Ovid, Ovid. Even T.S. Eliot said, you know, The Wasteland, the Metamorphosis is so important as a legacy. I didn't really understand that when I heard that in college, but all right. Anyway, so the name of the poem is a short one. Reflecting once again on Ovid. Back in the old days, a god could show up for breakfast. And if one did, he wasn't there for your omelet or coffee. No, it was for your body or your life, more than often. To save it or take it. So Ovid learned from Homer and Virgil too, as the deaths of Hyacinth and Turnus and the fates of Daphne and Lavinia show. Although a god won't show up for breakfast or in handcuffs today, many still claim we're puppets of a god, vehicles of the love or wrath of a will beyond earth. Though those hands on the wheel and that choice of where we turn are ours. That's never changed. The way a flower droops its head or a man succumbs to road rage. But today, a woman has the right to say no and hold her ground. That's a big change. That's a big change. Poor Daphne, Lavinia. You may think of Iphigenia. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Oh, well, thanks everyone for. It was a great reading.
Well, thank you so much.
So many nice poems. So many really good poems. Thank you.
That was such a spectacular reading. You know, it was beautiful in many ways. I mean, first of all, I mean, you bring the words on the page alive in your reading, and I know I can sense you're enjoying them and feeling the emotions yourself, which I felt sometimes. And so that was good, just to be able to bring alive the different emotions and the humor too. It was the spectrum of things. So, you know, we were not disappointed. It was really enjoyable.
Thanks, Richard.
And
really
impressive.
appreciate it.
Yes.
You know,
very good.
typical poet. I work in loneliness. I like to think it's solitude, but it's lonely writing. I mean, it's lonely, and you know, plus I teach online now, so that even adds to that sense of I guess I'll call it
Of
solitude,
separation, yeah, I have that
separation.
the feeling of separation.
And you know, a typical poet, the poem you just wrote is like, oh, it's my new child, it's wonderful, and then the next day you read it, it's like, really? so you know, Kafka, you know, he went through that torture over and over again.
Yeah,
So you know, you just keep writing. You write because you have to. Of course, publishing is a different animal. It's a
Right.
totally different
and that's
kind of thing. You send stuff out. You think you were sending it to Mars or something. You know, if got some poems out there that it's still in progress for the last 2 years. So, but you know, it's not about publishing. It's just
right. It's not about publishing. It's about you need to write, and you're right.
yeah. And who said it before? You write to kind of I think Victoria said that you write to understand yourself.
Yeah,
Which is kind of bizarre because then the poem stares back at you,
right.
and it's no longer yours in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's got a life. I mean, Kate Chopin said she'd wished her main character hadn't committed suicide in The Awakening. You know, you think of I forget the architect, a famous architect who said the building knows what it wants to be, just get out of its way.
Right.
So that, you know, the poem, in a way, the poem dispossesses you, and that's okay, because then when you read it and you see somebody smile or a tear, that's its destination, you know.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You?
So why don't we move on to who's up next then?
There you go. You should see her bio on the screen.
Okay, well, looking forward to second Saturday in June, the 14th, my Dreamwalker.
Okay.
Sabra from Harlem, poet, author, spoken word artist, streetwise aware, spreads word, creates wordscapes that magnify perception. We can all read this. They're basically major change of pace, someone very, very interesting. I'm sure we're going to enjoy listening to her poems, and I look forward to being with everyone in another month so much.
All right, we'll say goodbye to everyone. Have a great day. It's all cloudy up here in New York.